Rasa framework is very big. My agenda today is I don't want to give a lot of details. I just want to focus very high level picture how people can use the Rasa framework and then configure the agent and other details. What that means is Rasa needs some configuration so that when you are building a chatbot, it will answer accordingly. Okay. Uh, Agenda is we are going to talk about like what is Rasa framework, what is the architecture, how to install, and then few commands, and then what kind of a configurations are needed for Rasa, the YAML file, and then we are going to use how the format looks like. Okay. Rasa framework is an open source conversational AI platform that allows you to understand and hold a conversations and connect to the messaging channel and third-party system through a set of APIs. It's applied the built-in block for creating a virtual agent or digital assistant or a chatbot. What this means is Rasa is basically open source. Anybody can use it. Uh, it is basically provide you the very basic functionality. Like what that means is, right, many people confuse what is a framework, right? Framework provide you the components. Okay, if I want to connect to the backend API, what need to be done, where to enable, right? You want to connect to basically some caching mechanism, right? You want to have like a conversations, you want to cache to get a better performance. You want to cluster the system. How do you do, right? You want to integrate with some web application. How do you do? All the things are built in together. They define that, okay, if you want to achieve, if you want to go this route, this is what you have to do. All the bells and whistles, they already built in, but we just need to learn how to use the framework, right? We are not going to do much in our own way, but pretty much we follow the instructions or we follow the framework and then we build the chatbot. That's our main goal. Okay. This is the high level architecture. If you come from a right hand side to left hand side, this is, you can think like this is a web browser. In the web browser, the user is typing something, right? What is the weather or how is the weather, right? You type something, then it will go to the agent. Agent is just a software. You can assuming that everything is a software which talk to many components inside the Rasa software, right? Rasa has a many modules, right? This is an open source which contains this one module, Rasa SDK, another module, tracker store, log store, file system. So many components are there, right? In order people to understand, they put like a pictorial representation. Most of the stuff, whatever we are going to learn is everything is in the memory, right? That is our main funda today because we are running in the single machine. Everything is going to be in the memory execution. What that means is if you need conversations, right? For example, you are typing how is the weather, right? Then it will say that, okay, tell me your city. You say it is New York, right? Now you say this is weather is 30 degrees centigrade, right? Now all the conversation, it has to memorize it or it has to know, right? It is not like a one line sentence. You can have like a 10 uh, 10 conversations, right? 20 conversations, right? It has to build that memory, right? It has to understand the flow. Okay, I'm coming here. In the line second question, you mention about the city, right? Then somewhere else you're asking that, some other question, right? I want to find a Chinese restaurant, right? And then you already mentioned about the which city, right? You mentioned that New York, right? Those kind of information, it has to memorize it, right? It has to build some smartness. All those things we are going to use the in memory. By default, it is in memory. And then I'm going through little by little, uh, what are these components are needed for our project. That is our main focus. Okay. First one is a tracker store. Tracker store, what it does is it maintains the history, conversation history, track it. For example, if the user is in one mission, if you have a 2-3 missions, right? It has that capability to store it, right? If you are storing multiple missions, you might, instead of in memory, you might have to use other technology. There is a couple of technologies available. You can use a database, and you can use Redis cache and some other mechanism available. But this is one of the key component which they use it. If you look here, tracker, they use the symbol is like a database. What that means is, you think like any kind of a persistence mechanism. If somebody is talking, right, if you have multiple missions, it will go to the database and get it, and then does the job for you. Okay, this is one of the important component. But as far as application goes, we don't have to worry about this, but I just want to make sure that when we are talking about some of the configuration, you will get idea that where we are putting this information, where it is happening, right? Just to want to get a familiarity. Okay. Now what happens is, you write all the YAML files. I will go through the next steps, right? You define some files. Okay. In that file, you have all the details, right? How the conversation should be, and then what it is, right? Rasa, what it does is, you are going to run a command. It prepare a model. That model can be understood by Rasa framework. That's the only thing we do it. We define everything in the YAML file. Inside the YAML file, whatever you define, the structure, it is a plain English language. And then whenever you run it, it basically you need to train the stuff Rasa train. What it does is, it builds the model every time. It creates a model. There is a lot of you can build the model, and then you put somewhere else. You can connect from there, and you can do many things, right? From our use case, it will be location where our software is running. Okay, that's a very high level. Okay. Log store, what it does is, for example, somebody is doing a conversation, right? Now the request is going into the server 2. If you have 3 servers, server 1, server 2, server 3, the conversation first time it went to server 1, next time it is going into server 2. The Rasa internally provide a locking mechanism which knows that, okay, if you are doing something, right, the conversation, it maintains that information in another machine also. It does all the magic for you. Okay, we don't have to worry about anything. Now, this is another important thing is, Rasa provide you action server. Here, if you look at the top, this is action server. What it does is, it connects to, if you want to connect any models, nothing to do with the conversations, right? Nothing to do with the chatbot. Now let's assuming that, what is the weather in New York City, right? Chatbot doesn't know anything. What is the weather in the New York City? Chatbot only knows that what kind of question it can ask, right? Now that information has to come from whatever machine learning model or somewhere API, right? The action server, what it does is, there is a Python file, we write it and then we run it inside the action server. When it has the ability to connect to anything, it can connect to the LLMs, it can connect to your own models, right? But it is not part of Rasa. You have to run independently. For example, you develop your own machine learning model which provide you the weather, right? You need to expose as a REST-based service. From Python file, you just say that, okay, talk to this REST service. That's what you do, and then you get a response, and then you show it. Whatever today I'm going to show you is pretty much hard-coded value. The first step, once you guys familiarity, then I will go a little bit advanced concepts like forms and other things. For today, I just want to get you guys to get familiarity, what it is and other things. Okay. The next one is a Rasa installation. Rasa installation, which required a Python framework. It doesn't work 3.11, 12 like that. You can use 3.7, 8, 9, 10 like that. These are the Python versions it supports. If you want to install Rasa, you have to run this command. I'll go through that one by using a PyCharm. And then these are the few commands. Now, Rasa uses the data format models called YAML. Inside the YAML, you declare how the YAML looks like, want to be, and all the stuff. There is a few things you need to know. One is NLU, other one is the stories, other one is the rules, entities, slots. These are the 4-5 elements are there. But technically, you're going to have 3 files. One more file is a domain file. In that file, you are going to define that, okay, when somebody conversation, how is the weather, right? They need to know, chatbot need to know there is another concept called intent. It knows that it is a classification it does, and then, it will go there. I will go through that one now. Don't worry, even if you don't understand anything. The Rasa framework is very huge, right? It takes long time to learn and everything, but I just want to make easy for you guys to just learn it quickly. It is like whatever the concepts are required for you guys to do the job, right? That is my main goal, right? This is a sample file, how the YAML file internally uses, right? Very high level picture I will give. The example is the intent is the major important. What intent does is it is going to tell you that where to go, right? For example, how is the weather, right? Based on the whatever, how is the weather, it classifies, right? Okay, this belongs to this intent, right? You give the examples here. I will just take example of intent, right? Intent format is intent. You give like a grid, and then you give some examples. The user asks, hi, hey, right? It will come to this intent, right? You train the model, it understands. You can give as many you want. It is plain English, right? For example, you give like a different example I will go through. How is the weather, right? You give. If somebody can ask, give me the restaurants, Chinese restaurants, right? Or provide me the restaurants, or in our use case, I want to fill immigration form, so on, so, right? Based on what kind of examples you give, the Rasa framework understand, like a machine learning model identifies that, okay, based on your chatbot question, it identifies that way to go. It is just like a starting point, right? The starting point for Rasa framework is a intent. Based on the intent, you give whatever the examples, it will go to the next step, right? Next step is you are going to build a couple of stories. You say that, okay, if it is, for example, greed or some very happy scenario, you want to give one flow, right? You want to give some other scenario, you will give other flow, right? Based on the flow, it understands that, okay, it has to go the things, because these are internal stuff. We don't have to know anything. What we need to do is what need to be filled in these stories, what need to be filled in the rules, what need to be filled in the intent, right? It is a plain in English terminology. You define it and then get it done. That's it. Okay. Now, before moving further, if you guys have any questions, I will answer it. Okay. Okay. Now, the next steps are, if somebody wants to start, right? First, they can go to the PyCharm. They can open a PyCharm. They can create a new project, right? You just give any name, right? You create the only important thing you have to pick is what version of the Python you are doing. You can't pick the newer version. You can pick 3.10, 9, 8, 7, right? These are the 4 versions it's supporting currently. You click here and then you click create, it creates a Python project, right? Once Python project is created, I'll just give a little, if somebody is following, right? You can go to the Rasa documentation. Here the installation steps are there. First step is you can check what version of Python you have, right, in your machine. Now, what we are doing is we are creating just a Python project. After creating a Python project, then what you have to do is we have to install the Python software, sorry, Rasa software. Rasa software, in order to install, there is a two, basically, one is just a pip3 install Rasa, is the basic installation does, but I recommend you guys to install like this. You see the single quotes, use like this. Then what happens is it install complete software. You don't have to worry about anything. It install everything what needed Raga. It is very simple. One command, Raga software is in place, right? Next step is you need to create a project, right? Once the software is there, it is just a pip install, right? Instead of pip install, you have to use a pip3 install, and then you give a software name. That's it. One command is done. Now you have to create a project, Rasa project, right? What you have to do is you just go there, Rasa init, and then click enter. It will ask that where to install, right? What is the location? You can mention that, current location, right? It will install the software. Once you install, the structure looks like this, okay? Like this. I haven't created anything here. Nothing is created. I might have added certain things inside the YAML file, but otherwise all the files are already available. Haven't added any extra file or anything. Okay. Now here is the important thing, right? This is the YAML. I'll pick a very simple example so that you guys can understand, right? If somebody says the grade, right? In order to starting position, intent is the one which identifies that, how the flow has to go through, right? If somebody says that good morning, good evening, hello, right? All these things, chatbot, what it does is it will come to this intent, right? Once it come to this intent, the next steps, what will happen is it will go to the store. In the store, I have a happy path, I have a sad path, right? Based on that, it will ask that, okay, great, right? Great intent, what need to be done? It goes to the action, after create action. There is another file called domain file, right? In the domain file, we are going to mention intent. There is another concept called entity. I'll go through that one also. Here the response, right? I went to NLU file. In the NLU file, you write an intent, you give the examples, right? All the examples what need to be done. Next, what you write it is you write the story, right? Happy path, sad path. You can have as many paths you want, right? You are training the model. You are giving as many examples it want, right? It understand, right? Now what happens if the intent is agreed, it will go to this action. In this action in the domain file, there is a response is there. It will respond, right? Here I just simplicity, I put a hard-coded value, right? In the reality, what happens is there is action, get weather. This can be called, okay? There is a place it is there in order to call the backend. In this case, there is action Python file is there. It will go to the backend. Currently, it is hard-coded, but this is where you internally, you can configure the machine learning model and then do the job, okay? This is a very high-level picture, okay? Now, in order to test this one, you have two options. For today, I will go with a simple option. You can say Rasa shell. You just type one command. It's still loading. This is the model I create just for testing purpose I was doing. Whenever there is a command called Rasa train. If you run that one every time, it creates a new file. Okay. And then it is loading the thing. It takes a little time, but it is loading. Also, I have like a action server is running. This is the one, it goes like you are running two modules. One is a shell, another one is a local. There is another concept called basically web browser getting. Okay, now it is almost there. Now what we are trying to do here is we are going to test the chatbot in the command line. Okay. Okay, now I'm just going to say hello, okay, for simplicity. Hello, it says, how are you, right? If I go here, hello, right? It called the greet intent, okay? Now what happens? These are the examples we give, right? Based on these examples, okay, now this is a greet. Now it goes to the story. Okay, greet, it called this one, action. This action in the domain file we mentioned. If you look here, it called this action. How are you? Right? If I go to the story again, there is a mood, very great, right? There is another intent, mood great. Mood great is we say that if somebody says great, amazing, right? Let's say great. Oh, great, carry on, right? If you go here, story, it called mood great, right? Utter happy. If you go to domain, this will call. Okay, that is the flow it happens. Okay. Now the next scenario I'm going to do here is the weather, right? There is a weather. In order to do it, we had to start a action server. Even if you don't understand today, I'm going to take another session for advanced thing. For just simplicity understanding, you need to start an action server. In order to run the action server, you have to do Rasa run actions. It runs an action server. Action server, what happens is this Python file runs on that machine. Okay, on that point. Okay, here every action in the domain file you have action, right? Action underscore get underscore weather, right? Here you need to have a class that is mandatory. You are going to say that, okay, this get weather, right? Here I'm just doing a hard-coded value, you know, just for simplicity. I'm just doing a hard-coded value as a response. In the reality, what happens is you call the backend API, or in our world, we can think like a machine learning model, which exposes API. That's what we will do, right? For here, just simplicity, this is doing, right? I'm going to type that just for how is the weather. It says specify the city. I'm just saying New York, okay? 30 degrees. You see here, it is coming here. I'm hard coding the value, city coming 30 degrees, right? Now you're wondering how it knows that city, right? Here I'm going to show you that one. Now I'm telling that how is the weather, right? There is the intent called get weather. Here I'm showing that London city, right? This is called entities. Entities, you have to specify that, okay, if it is a London city, right? For example, you want to say Empire State Building, right? You can say building, right? It is basically entities or nouns, right? This is called the entities. Here, what we are doing is, here we are telling these are the examples, right? It understands, but this is the format you have to follow. If I go to the domain file, you need to tell that, oh, I have a city entity, right? It understands. It is basically, we are training the Rasa more framework, right? It is building the model based on this, right? Internally, if you think, right, intent is like a classification, right? There is a classification by default. What it does is, this is what it uses, pipelining, all this thing. If you want to customize this, you can customize it, okay? Based on this, it identifies the intent, and then it, based on what you configure, it also identifies the entities. These entities are useful for when you're conversating, right? If it is more than one conversation, it identifies that one, okay? Now there's a few important things here in the endpoint at this moment, right? In order to expose instead of command line, you want to expose to web browser, you have to uncomment this line, right? Now there is another one in the configuration. If you want to do your own logic, for this tokenization and all the stuff, it is NLP. What you want to do, I want to customize it, you can do. But one of the things strongly recommend is a DIT classifier. This is one of the best result. That's what they're saying. You can do everything, okay? Now the next steps are, these are the things, right? The one way what we did was we used the shell, right? If you want to stop it here, you see here, we are just going to stop here. Stop, it stops. I'm going to do, there is another one, right? I can use the web browser. For now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use one simple command. I'm exposing this Rasa as a API. What it does is you can connect from web browser, right? In order to connect a web browser, for now, I'm going to use a Postman to test it out. It is taking little time, but if you look here, I'm running as a API, and then right? In order to work this one, there is a endpoint. I'm uncommenting these two lines, 13 and 14 lines, right? Now it is loading. It takes few seconds. Now, the meantime, I'm going to give, this is a Postman. Whenever, whichever the port you are doing, right? Locally, I'm running on the local host 5005. You have to use this command, like a context, so that whatever the question you are asking in the command line, it is going to do. But I was just want to show you when you run it. Just now I ran it like a few minutes before. I asked what is the weather, right? It is going to say the content level, right? It is basically classification. It is telling probability is 99%. You are sure that one, right? Based on what you ask, right? It says like that. I'm just going to see. Yeah, server is running, right? I'm going to refresh this one. I'm sending the server. I'm getting this one, right? It is ranking based on that one. Let's ask something. Hello. Let's see. I'm sending, because when we want to use a real world, right, we are going to use our own browser or web, like it can be Flask or a Streamlit app or something, right, where the user can type conversations, right, chart application, you can say. Now user type, right, internally it goes like this. Basically, you need to have a call to the backend. This is where you call it. If it is running on some host name, it put a host name, and then you type hello. It is telling that intent is greet. This is a probability, right? Content level. It identifies what need to be done, right? This is a very high level picture. Even if you don't understand, don't worry. I'm going to have another session. I'm going to plan it. But for now, I'm just giving a glimpse of what is a Rasa, but it is not easy. It takes a little effort to learn it, but it is a plain vanilla English language. Anybody can do it, okay? I'll stop it here. And then if anybody has any question, I can answer.